The sound of flesh striking flesh echoed through the dining room like a thunderclap. Martha Johnson's head snapped sideways, her glasses flying across the polished mahogany table. Time seemed to slow as they skittered across the surface, coming to rest beside the untouched Sunday roast she had spent hours preparing. "This house belongs to Brian and me now. You need to know your place." Alicia's voice cut through the stunned silence. Her palm still raised, face contorted with a rage that seemed to have materialized from nowhere. Martha touched her cheek, feeling the heat spreading across her skin. The sting was nothing compared to the pain of watching her son Brian standing frozen, his eyes fixed on the floor, saying nothing, as his wife assaulted his mother. Just 24 hours earlier, they had buried Harold Johnson, Martha's husband of 42 years. The funeral had been a somber affair at Greater Hope Baptist Church, where Harold had served as a deacon for 3 decades. Rain fell like tears from heaven as they lowered his casket into the ground. Martha had stood tall despite her grief, dignified in her black dress, accepting condolences with grace. Now that same dignity was being stripped away with a single blow. "You'll be sleeping in the garage from now on," Alicia continued, her voice dropping to a cold, controlled tone. "We need your room for a home office." Martha looked at her son, searching for any sign of the boy she had raised, the child who would climb into her lap during thunderstorms, the teenager who had promised to always take care of her. But Brian's eyes remained downcast, his shoulders slumped in silent surrender. "I understand," Martha said quietly, her voice steady despite everything. She rose from her seat with deliberate slowness, straightened her dress, and walked toward the door. No tears, no protests, just the measured steps of a woman who had weathered many storms. That night, Martha sat on a thin mattress in the corner of the garage, surrounded by cardboard boxes and forgotten tools. The space smelled of motor oil and damp concrete. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows. Outside, rain began to fall again, drumming against the roof like impatient fingers. Martha reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out an old brass key. In the dim light, she turned it over, feeling the familiar weight in her palm. A faint smile touched her lips as she whispered to the empty room. "They have no idea about the $19 million, or the beach house." Harold had always said that patience was a virtue that paid dividends. "Martha," he would tell her, "when people think you're weak, let them. Your silence can be your greatest strength." Now, sitting in the cold garage, those words returned to her like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. She tucked the key back into her pocket and opened a small leather journal Harold had given her for their 40th anniversary. On the first page she wrote, "Day 1 of my silence. They believe I have nothing. Soon they will learn what nothing truly means." Martha Johnson had never been a woman who demanded attention. Born to a schoolteacher mother and a carpenter father in Atlanta, she had grown up understanding the value of hard work, education, and dignity. When she met Harold Johnson at Spelman College during a dance with neighboring Morehouse, she saw in him the same quiet determination, the same unwavering moral compass that her father had possessed. Together, they built a life of purpose and modest prosperity. Harold's insurance business grew steadily over decades, while Martha became a respected elementary school principal. They raised Brian with love and discipline, teaching him the importance of integrity and respect. Martha had always believed those lessons had taken root. Now she questioned everything. In her small, damp corner of the garage, Martha allowed herself to remember Harold's last days. The cancer had taken him quickly, too quickly for proper goodbyes. But on his final night, when the hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitors, Harold had squeezed her hand and pulled her close. "Martha," he had whispered, his voice rough with pain, "I've arranged everything. Walter has all the papers. Don't tell Brian yet. Watch first. See who he really is when I'm gone." She had nodded, not fully understanding what he meant, but trusting him as she always had. Harold had always been the meticulous one, the planner who looked several moves ahead. It wasn't until 3 days after the funeral that Martha understood why he had been so secretive. On that day, she had visited Walter Reed Harold's attorney of 25 years. The older man had welcomed her with solemn respect, leading her into a conference room where thick folders awaited. Harold wanted to make sure you would be taken care of, Martha, Walter explained, spreading documents across the table. He was concerned about certain influences on Brian. Martha remembered how her heart had tightened at those words. What do you mean? Walter had hesitated, adjusting his glasses. Harold suspected Alicia might have married Brian for financial reasons. He noticed changes in Brian's spending habits, unusual withdrawals, secretive behavior. That doesn't sound like my son, Martha had protested, though doubt had already begun to creep in like morning fog. Walter pushed a folder toward her. Harold established a complex trust in your name. The family home, the beach house in Charleston, his investment portfolio, the insurance policies, approximately $19 million in total assets. Brian believes he's the primary beneficiary, but Harold changed everything last year. He left Brian only a small trust that matures when he turns 50. Martha had stared at the papers, trying to absorb the magnitude of what she was hearing. Why wouldn't Harold tell me this before? He wanted to protect you, Walter said gently. He feared if Brian and Alicia knew the truth, they might try to challenge your competency or pressure you to sign over assets. Now, a week later, as Martha wrote in her journal, by the light of a bare bulb, the truth of Harold's concerns was becoming painfully clear. The garage door creaked open, allowing a rectangle of light from the kitchen to spill across the concrete floor. Brian stood in the doorway, a shadow against the brightness. Mom. His voice was uncertain, almost childlike. I brought you some extra blankets. It gets cold out here at night. Martha set her journal aside, careful to close it. Thank you, son. Brian stepped inside, placing the folded blankets on a workbench. He lingered, shifting his weight from one foot to another. I'm sorry about earlier. Alicia is under a lot of stress with the new position at work, and the kids' school troubles and everything. Martha studied her son's face, seeing the conflict there. Brian, do you remember what your father always said about character? He looked away. That it's what you do when no one is watching. And what about when someone is watching, son? What does your character say when you stand by and let someone harm your mother? Brian flinched as if she had struck him. It's complicated, Mom. You don't understand our financial situation. The house payments, the kids' private school tuition, Alicia's student loans. Dad's insurance money isn't going to last long. Martha nodded slowly, choosing her words with care. I understand more than you think. Your father and I never lived beyond our means. Times are different now, Brian mumbled, moving toward the door. Anyway, we can talk about moving you into a nice seniors community once things settle down. There's a good one in Georgia near where you grew up. The door closed before Martha could respond, leaving her again in semi-darkness. She opened her journal once more, making a new entry. Brian mentions financial strain and seniors community in the same conversation. The groundwork for displacement is being laid. The next morning, Martha woke before dawn, her back stiff from the thin mattress. She moved carefully through her makeshift morning routine, using a small bathroom sink to wash her face and brush her teeth. By 6:30, she was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for the family. The aroma of bacon and coffee filled the space as Chloe and Marcus, her grandchildren, stumbled in with sleepy eyes and tousled hair. Chloe, 12 years old, with her grandmother's observant gaze, immediately noticed something was different. Grandma, why are your things in the garage? Dad said you're sleeping out there now. Martha smiled as she flipped pancakes. Sometimes adults need to rearrange things, sweetheart. It's just temporary. Marcus, 8 years old and perpetually curious, tilted his head. Is it like camping? Can I sleep out there with you? Before Martha could answer, Alicia swept into the kitchen wearing an expensive silk blouse and tailored pants. Children, get your backpacks ready. You're going to be late. Her voice was sweet honey, completely transformed from the previous night's venom. She turned to Martha, her smile not reaching her eyes. Mother Johnson remembered the children need their lunches packed. Chloe has band practice, so she needs extra snacks, and Brian likes his shirts ironed before meetings. Martha nodded, feeling the weight of Alicia's expectations settle on her shoulders like an invisible yoke. As her grandchildren scurried to obey their mother, Martha caught Chloe looking back with a frown of confusion and concern. The morning proceeded in a whirlwind of activity. Brian gulped down coffee, barely making eye contact with his mother before rushing out. Alicia herded the children to her SUV, calling over her shoulder, "The house needs vacuuming, and don't forget to defrost the chicken for dinner." When the house finally emptied, Martha stood in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by dirty breakfast dishes and morning chaos. The silence was sudden and complete. She walked slowly through each room of the house she had shared with Harold for decades, touching familiar surfaces, remembering happier times. In their bedroom, now claimed by Brian and Alicia, she paused at Harold's closet, still containing his pressed shirts and polished shoes. "I miss you, Harold," she whispered, running her fingers along the sleeve of his favorite jacket, still holding the faint scent of his aftershave. "I'm trying to understand what's happening to our family." Martha's reflection in the bedroom mirror caught her attention. At 60, her face carried the dignified beauty of a life well lived. Silver threaded through her dark hair, and laugh lines framed eyes that had witnessed both joy and sorrow. She straightened her shoulders, remembering who she was, not just Brian's mother or Harold's widow, but Martha Johnson, former principal community leader, a woman of faith and determination. With renewed purpose, Martha began her investigation. She started in the home office, carefully searching through papers in the desk that had once been Harold's domain. Most files were missing, but in a forgotten folder tucked behind the drawer, she found bank statements showing large withdrawals, $50,000 over the past 3 months. All signed by Brian from the account she and Harold had established for emergency family needs. Martha photographed the statements with her phone, then continued her search. In Alicia's vanity drawer beneath expensive makeup and jewelry, she discovered prescription bottles with Martha's name on them, medications she had never been prescribed. Sleep aids, anti-anxiety pills, memory supplements. A cold realization settled in her stomach as she connected the dots. Alicia was collecting medications to make Martha appear mentally unstable. The garage door was opening as Martha quickly returned everything to its place. She moved to the kitchen, assuming the role of dutiful mother-in-law, preparing afternoon snacks. Chloe entered first, her school backpack dragging on the floor. "Grandma," she said quietly, checking to make sure her mother wasn't behind her, "I heard Mom talking on the phone about you. She said you're getting forgetful and might need special care. Are you sick?" Martha's heart tightened, but she kept her expression calm. "No, sweetheart. I'm perfectly healthy." "That's what I thought." Chloe nodded seriously. "You never forget anything. You remember all my friends' names and Marcus's dinosaur facts. Mom's wrong." Martha hugged her granddaughter, drawing strength from the child's simple observation. "Sometimes adults see things differently, but thank you for caring." Later that afternoon, Martha ventured into the neighborhood for the first time since the funeral. She walked 3 blocks to James Turner's house, a well-kept colonial with meticulously trimmed hedges. James, a 75-year-old retired judge, had been Harold's closest friend for decades. James welcomed her with genuine warmth, ushering her into a sunlit sitting room. "Martha, I've been meaning to visit. How are you holding up?" "Not well, James," she admitted, setting aside pretense. Harold was right about his concerns. The older man's expression grew serious. "Tell me everything." For the next hour, Martha detailed the events since Harold's passing, the physical and emotional abuse, the financial discoveries, the medications, the subtle campaign to paint her as incompetent. James listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "This is elder abuse, Martha," he said finally, his judicial demeanor coming to the fore. "Financial exploitation, emotional abuse, possible medical manipulation. We need to document everything." "I need to protect my grandchildren," Martha insisted. "They're caught in the middle of this." James nodded, considering. "I have a former colleague, Diana Lopez. She's a private investigator who specializes in elder abuse cases. With your permission, I'll contact her." "Please do," Martha agreed. "But I need to be careful. If Alicia suspects I'm building a case—" "You'll need to continue playing the role she expects," James confirmed. "The compliant mother-in-law while we gather evidence." As Martha prepared to leave, James placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "Harold would be proud of your strength, Martha. Not everyone could face this with such dignity." Walking home, Martha felt a strange mix of sadness and resolve. The neighborhood was alive with afternoon activities, children riding bikes, neighbors tending gardens, ordinary life continuing despite her private turmoil. At the corner market, she paused to buy a few items, aware of the need to maintain normal appearances. The young cashier barely glanced at her scanning items with bored efficiency. An elderly white woman ahead of her in line had received attentive service with offers to help carry groceries. Martha noted the difference with resigned familiarity, another reminder of her increasing invisibility as an aging black woman. When Martha returned home, she found Alicia in the kitchen, talking on her cell phone while examining the contents of the refrigerator. "I know it's challenging," Alicia was saying, her voice hushed but audible. "The Georgia facility costs less than keeping her here, though. No, Brian doesn't need to know all the details yet. Men are easy to persuade when you frame it as financial sense." Martha deliberately made noise with her shopping bags, announcing her presence. Alicia quickly ended her call, switching effortlessly to a concerned daughter-in-law persona. "Mother Johnson, you shouldn't be carrying heavy bags at your age. Did you walk to the store? You know your blood pressure needs monitoring." Martha nodded demurely. "Just a few light things, Alicia. The walk is good for me." "Well, since you're back, could you start on dinner? Brian has a colleague coming over, and I need time to prepare." Without waiting for an answer, Alicia swept from the kitchen, her expensive perfume lingering in her wake. Martha began preparing dinner, her movements methodical, as her mind processed what she had overheard. A facility in Georgia, financial persuasion. The pieces were falling into place with alarming clarity. She had less time than she thought. When Brian returned from work, Martha observed the subtle dynamics between husband and wife. Alicia touched his arm possessively, steered conversations, answered questions directed at him. Brian's once confident demeanor had been replaced by a man constantly seeking approval, checking his wife's expression before speaking. The transformation was both fascinating and heartbreaking to witness. Over dinner with Brian's colleague, a financial advisor named Thomas, Martha noticed how Alicia dominated the conversation, dropping references to investment opportunities and property values. When Thomas asked Martha about her plans, now that Harold was gone, Alicia smoothly intercepted. "We've been discussing a wonderful seniors community near Martha's hometown. Haven't we Mother Johnson perfect for someone at her stage of life?" Martha smiled politely. "I haven't made any decisions yet." "Of course not," Alicia continued, her tone indulgent. "It's a difficult transition to consider, but we've noticed some concerning memory lapses recently, haven't we, Brian?" Brian nodded uncomfortably. "Mom has been through a lot." Thomas looked sympathetic, but quickly returned to discussing investment strategies with Alicia, who showed surprising financial acumen for someone who claimed to be just focusing on the children, whenever Martha asked about her career plans. After dinner, while clearing dishes, Martha overheard Thomas and Alicia speaking in low voices in the hallway. "The property assessments came back higher than expected," Thomas was saying. "Once the title transfer is complete, the equity line should be substantial." "Perfect timing," Alicia responded. "With her deteriorating condition, it's really the most compassionate option for everyone." Martha's hands trembled slightly as she loaded the dishwasher, processing the implications. They were already making arrangements to transfer property, her property. The urgency of her situation crystallized with new clarity. That night, as the house fell quiet, Martha sat in the garage with her journal documenting every conversation, every observation. She carefully noted names, dates, and potential witnesses. The journal was becoming both therapy and evidence, a record of systematic abuse disguised as family care. A soft knock interrupted her writing. Martha quickly tucked the journal under her pillow as the door cracked open. Chloe stood there in pajamas, a stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. "Grandma, can I talk to you?" Martha patted the space beside her on the bed. "Of course, sweetheart." Chloe settled in, leaning against Martha's shoulder. "Mom said you're going away to Georgia because you're getting old and forgetful, but you're not forgetful. You remember everything." Martha stroked the girl's hair. "Sometimes adults make decisions based on what they think is best." "It's not fair," Chloe insisted. And yesterday, I saw Mom with a man at the park when she was supposed to be at yoga. They were hugging, but not like friends, like in movies. Martha kept her expression neutral despite the significant revelation. "Did you tell your dad?" Chloe shook her head. "Mom said if I ever said anything that made Dad upset with her, we might have to move away from you forever. She said it would be my fault." Anger flared in Martha's chest, but she contained it, pulling her granddaughter closer. "Chloe, listen to me carefully. Adults sometimes say things that aren't true because they're afraid or upset. None of this is your fault, and I'm not going anywhere." "Promise." Chloe looked up, her young face serious. "I promise. Now, would you like to learn something special that my mother taught me?" Chloe nodded eagerly. Martha reached into her small bedside drawer and removed a blank notebook. "This is a truth journal. When things happen that confuse you or seem wrong, you write them down exactly as you saw them. No one else needs to read it. It helps you remember what's real when people try to tell you something different. Like when Mom says she was at yoga, but I saw her at the park. Exactly like that. Writing things down helps us keep our minds clear." After Chloe returned to the house, Martha sat motionless, absorbing the new information. Alicia was having an affair, using it to manipulate her children and accelerating plans to remove Martha from the picture. The stakes were rising by the day. Martha reached for her phone and texted James, "Need to meet tomorrow. Situation deteriorating faster than expected." The next morning, Martha woke to unusual sounds. Drawers opening and closing in the main house hushed urgent conversations. She dressed quickly and made her way to the kitchen, finding Brian and Alicia in tense discussion. "Good morning," Martha said, observing how they both startled at her presence. "Mother Johnson." Alicia recovered quickly, her smile tight. "We were just discussing some concerning behavior. Chloe says you gave her a journal and told her to spy on family members." Martha maintained a calm exterior. "I gave her a notebook for her thoughts. Many children find writing therapeutic." Brian frowned. "Mom, you told her to record things that seem wrong. Chloe is confused enough without encouraging paranoia." "There's nothing paranoid about writing down one's observations," Martha replied evenly. Alicia placed a hand on Brian's arm. "This is exactly what Dr. Phillips mentioned, creating conflict between family members, sowing distrust. It's a classic sign of cognitive decline." "Dr. Phillips?" Martha asked, though she already suspected the answer. "We consulted a geriatric specialist," Brian explained, not meeting her eyes. "Given some of your recent behaviors." "What behaviors exactly?" Martha pressed her voice steady. Alicia interjected smoothly. "Forgetting appointments, accusing family members of stealing, wandering the neighborhood, giving inappropriate gifts to the children. Brian, remember when she couldn't find her purse and accused me of hiding it?" Martha did not recall any such incident, but she recognized the strategy, creating a fictional history of erratic behavior. "I see." "We're concerned, Mom," Brian said, sounding genuinely distressed. "Dr. Phillips recommended a full evaluation. We've scheduled an appointment for next week." Martha nodded slowly. "I understand. If you're concerned, I'm happy to see a doctor." Her apparent compliance visibly relieved them both. "Wonderful," Alicia beamed. "Now I'm taking the children to their activities. Brian, don't forget your 11 o'clock with the estate attorney." After they departed, Martha moved with purpose. She had a narrow window of opportunity while the house was empty. In Brian and Alicia's bedroom, she carefully searched through drawers until she found what she was looking for, a leather portfolio containing financial documents. Among them was a preliminary property assessment for the family home and an application for power of attorney over Martha's affairs, already partially completed. Martha photographed each document, then replaced everything exactly as she had found it. Next, she located Alicia's laptop. It was password protected, but Martha tried the children's birth dates, combined a common choice for parents. The screen unlocked, revealing dozens of emails. Martha quickly scanned for relevant information, finding communications with a real estate agent about fast-tracking the sale once guardianship is established. More disturbing was an email thread with someone named Daniel Parker, containing intimate language and references to our future once this is settled. Martha forwarded key emails to her own account, then carefully erased all evidence of her activity from the computer. Just as she finished, she heard the garage door opening. Martha hurried downstairs, positioning herself at the sink with a sudsy sponge as Brian entered. "Mom, I thought you'd be resting." "Just tidying up," she replied. "How was your morning?" Brian set down his briefcase, looking uncomfortable. "Fine. Listen about the doctor's appointment. It's really for the best. We all want what's best for you." Martha dried her hands slowly. "Brian, do you remember when you were 10 and that boy Tommy Reynolds was bullying you at school? Do you remember what your father told you?" Brian's expression softened at the memory. "He said sometimes you have to stand up even when you're afraid." "Harold believed in standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult," Martha said quietly. "I've always tried to live by that principle." A flicker of shame crossed Brian's face, quickly replaced by defensiveness. "This is different. We're trying to help you." Martha looked directly into her son's eyes. "Are you really Brian? Are you helping me? Or are you helping yourself?" Before he could answer, his phone rang, Alicia calling. Brian turned away to answer, his shoulders tensing as he spoke in hushed tones. Martha watched him mourning the confident, principled young man who seemed to have vanished, replaced by this anxious stranger. After Brian left for his appointment, Martha texted James again. "Need to see Walter Reed today. Can you arrange?" An hour later, Martha sat in Walter's office, surrounded by the comforting smell of leather-bound books and polished wood. The elderly attorney listened gravely as she detailed her discoveries. "They're moving faster than I anticipated," Walter acknowledged. "The good news is they can't legally do much without your consent or a court order declaring you incompetent." "But they're building a case for exactly that," Martha pointed out. "This Dr. Phillips, whoever he is—" "I'll investigate him," Walter promised. "Meanwhile, we should take precautionary measures. I suggest we move some assets immediately into the irrevocable trust Harold established. That will place them beyond reach regardless of guardianship issues." Martha nodded. "And the house?" "The family home remains in your name alone. Harold was very specific about that. They may be operating under the assumption that it's joint property with Brian, but that's incorrect." As they reviewed documents, Diana Lopez arrived, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor. James had arranged the introduction, and Martha felt immediate trust in the investigator's professional confidence. "Mrs. Johnson, I've reviewed the initial information," Diana began. "What we're seeing is a textbook case of elder exploitation. The isolation, the medical manipulation, the financial maneuvering, classic patterns." "What do you recommend?" Martha asked. "Document everything. Continue playing along while we build our case. I'll start background checks on Alicia and this Daniel Parker. We'll need to establish the timeline of manipulation." Martha signed the necessary authorizations, feeling a strange calm settling over her. The path forward was becoming clear, not a path she would have chosen, but one she would walk with dignity. "There's something else you should know," Diana added, her expression serious. "Based on preliminary research, Alicia Bennett Johnson has changed her name at least twice. Her original name was Angela Blackwood, and she has a history of targeting vulnerable families. I'm still gathering details, but she may have been involved in similar situations before." Martha absorbed this information, pieces clicking into place. "She's done this before." "We'll know more soon," Diana confirmed. "In the meantime, we need to protect you physically as well as legally. Is there somewhere else you could stay?" Martha shook her head firmly. "No. I need to remain in the house close to my grandchildren. They're vulnerable in all this too." Walter and Diana exchanged concerned looks, but respected her decision. As the meeting concluded, Walter handed Martha a small device. "A panic button," he explained. "If you feel threatened, press this. It connects directly to a security service and alerts both Diana and me." Martha slipped it into her pocket, thanking them for their support. Outside the office building, she paused to gather her thoughts. The bright Boston afternoon continued around her people, hurrying to appointments, tourists snapping photos, life proceeding in its ordinary rhythms, while her own world tilted on its axis. At a small cafe across the street, Martha ordered tea, needing a moment of normalcy before returning to her performance. As she waited, she noticed an elderly white couple being attentively served, while the young server barely acknowledged her presence. When she finally received her tea, it was lukewarm and hastily prepared. Martha said nothing, leaving an extra-large tip with a kind note. The small indignities of aging as a black woman were familiar companions, but they reinforced a crucial understanding in many eyes she was already invisible. Perhaps she reflected she could use that invisibility, as Harold had suggested, as a form of power. People revealed themselves when they thought no one was watching or listening. On her way home, Martha passed a community center with a sign advertising senior activities. A group of older adults were visible through the window, engaged in what appeared to be an art class. For a moment, Martha allowed herself to imagine a different life, one where she might be painting or learning a new skill surrounded by peers rather than fighting to maintain her dignity and security. The fantasy dissolved as her phone vibrated with a text from Alicia. "Where are you? Brian's colleague Thomas is coming for dinner again. Need kitchen prepared." Reality reasserted itself. Martha straightened her shoulders and quickened her pace. She was not just fighting for herself, but for her grandchildren, for Harold's legacy, and for every elder who had been silenced or dismissed. As she walked, she mentally recited one of her favorite Maya Angelou poems, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies, but still like dust I'll rise." When Martha reached the house, she found Chloe sitting on the front steps, tears streaming down her face. The girl looked up, relief washing over her features. "Grandma, Mom took my journal. She was so angry. She said I was making up lies." Martha sat beside her granddaughter, heart aching. "What happened, sweetheart?" "I wrote about seeing her with that man like you said to write down true things. She found it and said I was spying. She said if I tell Dad, terrible things will happen." Martha pulled Chloe close, feeling the girl's tears soak through her blouse. "Listen to me. You did nothing wrong. The truth is never wrong, even when it's difficult." "Mom says you're sick and imagining things," Chloe whispered. "She says you're making me think bad things, too. Do you believe that?" Martha asked gently. Chloe shook her head. "No, you're the only one who doesn't lie." Martha kissed the top of her granddaughter's head, resolve solidifying within her. The stakes were even higher than she had realized. This wasn't just about property or dignity, it was about protecting the next generation from manipulation and deceit. As they sat together on the steps, Martha made a silent promise to Harold, to herself, and to her grandchildren. This battle would be fought not with rage or vengeance, but with the steady, unstoppable force of truth. Her silence would be strategic, her patience purposeful, her evidence meticulous. The final confrontation was coming. Martha Johnson would be ready. Morning light filtered through the small garage window, casting long rectangles across the concrete floor. Martha Johnson had been awake for hours, her mind churning with strategies and concerns. She dressed with deliberate care in a modest navy dress, one that made her look slightly older, slightly more fragile than she actually was. The art of appearing harmless was becoming second nature. The house was already alive with morning sounds, Alicia's heels clicking across hardwood floors, children's voices, the clatter of breakfast dishes. Martha took a deep breath and entered the kitchen, assuming the role expected of her. "Good morning," she offered, moving directly to the stove to prepare breakfast. Alicia barely glanced up from her phone. "Mother Johnson, remember Brian has that doctor's appointment today. I need you to pick up the children from school at 3 instead of their usual time." "Of course," Martha agreed, noting how Alicia never asked, only commanded. Brian entered, adjusting his tie. His eyes darted between his wife and mother, tension evident in the set of his shoulders. "Morning, Mom. You're up early." Martha placed a plate of eggs before him. "I've always been an early riser. You remember how your father and I would watch the sunrise together?" A flicker of something guilt perhaps crossed Brian's face before Alicia interjected. "Brian, don't forget to call Dr. Phillips today. He wanted to discuss the assessment results before Mother Johnson's appointment." She emphasized the word assessment while giving Martha a look of manufactured concern. "I'll handle it," Brian mumbled, focusing on his breakfast. Martha moved through the morning routine with practiced efficiency, preparing lunches for the children, ironing Brian's shirts, all while absorbing every fragment of conversation. When the family departed, leaving her alone in the house, she moved quickly. First, she texted Diana. "House empty until 3 p.m. Good opportunity for documentation." Diana's response came swiftly. On my way. Start photographing anything relevant." Martha began a methodical search of the home office. In the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, she discovered a folder labeled Mother J Medical. Inside were detailed notes documenting symptoms Martha had never exhibited confusion about dates, aggressive behavior, paranoid accusations. Each incident was precisely dated and described in Alicia's neat handwriting. Martha photographed every page, her hands steady, despite the violation she felt. She continued searching, finding financial statements showing Brian and Alicia had already contacted 3 different senior living facilities in Georgia. One brochure was marked with notes about minimal family visitation requirements and streamlined power of attorney processes. In Alicia's desk, Martha discovered something even more disturbing, a half-empty prescription bottle with Martha's name on it. The medication was lorazepam, a powerful anti-anxiety drug Martha had never been prescribed. Examining it closely, she noticed the prescribing doctor was Philip Winters, likely the mysterious Dr. Phillips Alicia kept mentioning. Martha placed the bottle in a plastic bag, then continued her search. Inside Brian's nightstand, she found a legal pad with notes from a consultation with an elder law attorney discussing involuntary commitment options and challenging competency. Her heart racing, Martha reached for her phone to call Diana when a sound froze her in place. The garage door was opening. She had been so engrossed in her search that she'd lost track of time. Quickly replacing everything exactly as she had found it, Martha hurried toward the stairs. She wasn't fast enough. "Mom, what are you doing in our bedroom?" Brian stood in the doorway, briefcase still in hand, expression confused and suspicious. Martha's mind raced for a plausible explanation. "I was looking for my reading glasses," she said, forcing a casual tone. "I thought I might have left them on your nightstand the other day when I was reading to Marcus." Brian's eyes narrowed, flicking to the partially closed drawer of his nightstand. "I came back for some documents I forgot. Alicia mentioned you might be wandering around the house." Martha felt a chill at the calculated way Alicia had planted seeds of suspicion. "I wasn't wandering, Brian. I was simply looking for my glasses." "They're hanging around your neck, Mom." Martha glanced down, seeing her reading glasses on their chain. A rookie mistake. "Oh, how silly of me. I've been wearing them all along." She laughed, the sound hollow even to her own ears. Brian didn't smile. "Alicia's right. These memory lapses are getting worse." He set down his briefcase and took out his phone. "I'm calling Dr. Phillips. He wanted to know about any new incidents." "Brian, please," Martha began, but he was already dialing, turning away from her. "Yes, Dr. Phillips. It's Brian Johnson. I need to report another episode with my mother." Martha retreated downstairs, her heart hammering. This unexpected encounter had set back her plans considerably. She texted Diana quickly. "Emergency. Brian home. Abort visit." Then she positioned herself in the kitchen, busying herself with lunch preparations, trying to appear normal while her mind calculated this new setback. When Brian came downstairs, his expression was a mixture of concern and resolution. "Dr. Phillips thinks we should move up your evaluation. He has an opening tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" Martha tried to keep the alarm from her voice. "That's very sudden." "It's for the best, Mom. These episodes are becoming more frequent." He approached, placing what was meant to be a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Alicia and I only want what's best for you." After Brian left again, Martha sank into a kitchen chair, momentarily overwhelmed. The timeline was accelerating dangerously. She needed to act quickly, but now had to be even more careful. Being caught once had already strengthened their case against her. She called Walter Reed immediately. His secretary initially resisted putting her through "Mr. Reed is in meetings all day," but Martha's firm insistence finally connected her. "Walter, they're moving faster than we thought. Brian caught me searching their room, and now they've scheduled an evaluation with Dr. Phillips for tomorrow morning." Walter's response was measured but urgent. "This changes things. We need to protect you legally before this evaluation. Can you come to my office immediately?" "I don't know if I can get away. They're watching me more closely now." "I'll send a courier with documents for you to sign. We need to file for an emergency protective order before they can move against you." By noon, a young woman in a courier's uniform delivered an envelope to the house. Martha signed the necessary papers, hands trembling slightly with urgency. As the courier left, Martha spotted a black sedan parked across the street. A man sitting inside appeared to be watching the house. Alicia was having her followed. Martha retreated to the garage feeling trapped. She needed to warn Diana and James about the surveillance, but feared her phone might be compromised as well. Using her old flip phone that Harold had insisted she keep for emergencies, she sent a text to James. "Being watched. Need secure communication." While waiting for a response, Martha reviewed her options. The evaluation tomorrow would be designed to find her incompetent Dr. Phillips would ensure that outcome. She needed independent medical documentation of her mental capacity immediately. But how could she get to Dr. Hayes without being followed? A text came through on her emergency phone, not from James, but from Diana. "Back gate 30 minutes. We're gardening clothes." Martha moved quickly, changing into old overalls and a wide-brimmed hat. She gathered gardening tools and made her way to the backyard, making a show of checking the rose bushes Harold had planted years ago. Casually working her way toward the back fence, she kept the black sedan in her peripheral vision. At exactly the appointed time, Martha slipped through the back gate, where Diana was waiting in a gardener's truck, engine idling. "Duck down," Diana instructed as Martha climbed in. "They've got someone watching the house, but they weren't expecting you to leave through the back." As Diana navigated through side streets, Martha described the morning's setback. Diana's expression grew increasingly grave. "They're accelerating because they sense resistance. That's actually good news. It means they know they don't have as strong a case as they want. But this evaluation tomorrow, we'll deal with that. Right now, we're going to Dr. Hayes. Walter has already briefed her, Dr. Hayes had been Martha's physician for 15 years. The woman's indignation was evident as she conducted a thorough cognitive assessment documenting Martha's excellent mental capacity. "This is outrageous," Dr. Hayes muttered as she completed her report. "I've known you for years, Martha. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function." "Will your assessment carry weight against Dr. Phillips?" Martha asked. Dr. Hayes's expression was grim. "Legally, yes, but these cases can get complicated. The fact that I've been your doctor for years gives my assessment credibility, but they'll argue I'm biased in your favor." "So what do we do?" "We're sending you to Dr. Levinson as well. He's a neuropsychologist with no prior connection to you. His independent assessment will be harder to challenge." The next 2 hours were spent with Dr. Levinson, who administered a battery of cognitive tests. Throughout, Martha maintained her composure, though anxiety gnawed at her. What if something showed up on these tests? What if, without realizing it, she actually was experiencing some decline? When Dr. Levinson finally finished, his conclusion was unequivocal. "Mrs. Johnson, your cognitive function is not only normal for your age, it's exceptional. You scored in the top percentile on several measures." Relief washed over Martha. "Thank you, doctor." "I've documented everything thoroughly," he assured her. "If this goes to court, I'm prepared to testify." By mid-afternoon, Diana was driving Martha back toward the house. "We'll drop you 2 blocks away. Walk back normally, as if you've just been out for some air. The watcher will report that I left." "Let them. You're not under house arrest yet. Just say you needed a walk to clear your head." As Martha walked the final blocks home, she rehearsed her explanation. She rounded the corner to find not just the black sedan still there, but Brian's car in the driveway as well. Her heart sank. Inside, Brian and Alicia were waiting in the living room, faces tense with anger. "Where have you been?" Alicia demanded. "We've been worried sick." Martha kept her voice level. "I went for a walk. The garden needed attention, and afterward I decided to clear my head." "For 3 hours," Brian's voice was sharp, "without telling anyone. I didn't realize I needed permission to take a walk." Alicia stepped forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "Mother Johnson in your condition wandering off alone is dangerous. You could have gotten lost or hurt." "I'm perfectly capable of walking in my own neighborhood," Martha replied evenly. "I've lived here for 40 years. "This is exactly what concerns us," Brian said. "These impulsive behaviors, the defensiveness. Dr. Phillips warned us about this phase. Martha felt the trap tightening. Every denial was being twisted into evidence of her supposed decline. She changed tactics. "I'm sorry if I worried you. I should have left a note." The concession seemed to mollify Brian slightly, but Alicia pressed on. "We're concerned enough that we've decided someone should be with you at all times until your evaluation tomorrow." "You mean I'm under house arrest?" Martha couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Of course not," Alicia said smoothly. "It's for your safety. Brian has taken the rest of the day off to stay with you, and I've arranged for a home health aide to be here overnight." The implications were clear. They didn't want her making any more unsupervised moves before Dr. Phillips could declare her incompetent. Martha nodded, accepting the restriction while her mind raced with new calculations. The remainder of the afternoon passed in uncomfortable tension. Brian shadowed Martha throughout the house, watching her every move under the guise of concern. When Chloe and Marcus returned from school, they sensed the strange atmosphere immediately. "What's wrong, Dad?" Chloe asked, noting her father's unusual presence on a weekday afternoon. "Nothing, sweetheart. I'm just spending some time with Grandma today." Chloe's perceptive gaze moved between her father and grandmother. Martha gave her a reassuring smile, though inside she was desperate to speak privately with her granddaughter. The opportunity came when Brian stepped away to take a phone call. Martha quickly beckoned Chloe to the kitchen. "Grandma, are you okay? Mom said you might have to go to a special hospital." Martha squeezed Chloe's hand. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Sometimes adults disagree about what's best. No matter what happens, remember what I taught you about your truth journal. To write down what I really see and hear." "Exactly. And no one can tell you what you see isn't real." Brian returned, ending their conversation. Evening brought the promised health aide, a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Graves, who established herself in the living room with a clear view of the stairs and the garage entrance. "I'll be right here all night," she informed Martha with artificial cheerfulness, "in case you need anything at all." "In case I try to leave," Martha translated silently. That night, confined to the garage that had become her bedroom, Martha felt truly trapped for the first time. She had no way to contact Walter or Diana, and tomorrow's evaluation loomed like an execution date. She sat on the edge of her bed, despair threatening to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. A soft tap at the garage door startled her. Expecting Mrs. Graves, Martha was surprised to find Marcus standing there in dinosaur pajamas clutching his small digital camera. "Grandma," he whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "I'm supposed to be in the bathroom. I have something important." Martha ushered him inside quickly. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I was taking pictures of bugs in the yard for science class yesterday." He turned on his camera, scrolling to an image. "But I got this by accident." Martha's breath caught as she looked at the display. The image showed Alicia in the side yard locked in an embrace with a man who was definitely not Brian. Though partially obscured by foliage, the man's face was clear enough, handsome, younger than Brian, with an expensive watch visible on his wrist. "When did you take this?" Martha asked carefully. "Yesterday, when Mom thought I was at Tommy's house. I came home early because Tommy got sick." Marcus fidgeted nervously. "Mom was really mad when she saw me. She said I couldn't tell Dad about her friend because it would make him sad. She made me promise." Martha's mind raced. This was invaluable evidence, but she had no way to get it to Diana or Walter before tomorrow's evaluation. "Marcus, could I borrow your camera until tomorrow?" He hesitated. "Mom checks my backpack sometimes." "I understand. Can you do something very brave for me? Could you take this picture again with my phone?" She reached for her regular phone, the one she suspected was being monitored. At this point, she needed to force their hand. Marcus nodded solemnly, carefully navigating her phone to transfer the image. "Is Mom doing something bad?" he asked. Martha chose her words with care. "Your mother is making some choices that might hurt people. But that's not your fault, Marcus. None of this is your fault." After Marcus left, Martha waited 10 minutes, then turned on her phone, deliberately accessing the photo several times. If Alicia was indeed monitoring her phone activity, this would set off alarms. It was a risky move, but Martha was out of options. Less than 20 minutes later, heavy footsteps approached the garage door. It flew open, revealing Alicia's face contorted with fury, Mrs. Graves hovering anxiously behind her. "Give me your phone, now." Alicia's voice was deadly quiet. Martha handed it over without protest, watching, as Alicia accessed the photo, her face paling. "Where did you get this? Does it matter? What matters is that you've been lying to my son." Alicia's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You think this changes anything? No one will believe you. By this time tomorrow, you'll be declared legally incompetent. Brian will have guardianship, and this house," she gestured expansively, "will be ours to do with as we please." "I know about Daniel Parker," Martha said quietly, watching satisfaction register on Alicia's face at the direct hit. "I know about the gambling debts, the plans to sell this house, all of it." For a moment, genuine shock registered on Alicia's face before she recovered. "You're more resourceful than I gave you credit for. But it's too late, Martha. Everything's in motion." "It's never too late for the truth." Alicia laughed coldly. "Truth. The truth is whatever people believe. And by tomorrow afternoon, everyone will believe you're a confused old woman who can't take care of herself." She pocketed Martha's phone. "Get some rest. Your evaluation is at 9. After Alicia left, Martha sat motionless, considering her options. She had deliberately shown her hand, hoping to provoke a reaction that might create an opening. Now she had to wait to see if her gamble would pay off. Sleep eluded her that night. She lay awake, remembering Harold's words. "Patience is your strength, Martha. When the time comes, you'll know what to do." At dawn, Martha rose and dressed with particular care, choosing a conservative blue dress that conveyed dignity without appearing too formal. She applied subtle makeup and styled her hair neatly. If today was to be a battle, she would face it with the full armor of her self-respect. Mrs. Graves escorted her to breakfast, where Brian and Alicia were already seated. The tension in the room was palpable. Alicia appeared composed, but a tightness around her eyes betrayed her stress. Brian looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept. "Good morning," Martha greeted them calmly. Brian barely nodded, avoiding her eyes. Alicia's smile was brittle. "I hope you slept well, Mother Johnson. Big day today." Martha ate slowly, noting how Alicia watched her every bite. "Brian," Martha said gently, "have you spoken directly with Dr. Phillips about today's evaluation?" Before he could answer, Alicia interjected. "Of course he has. Dr. Phillips has been very thorough in explaining your condition and the evaluation process." "Actually," Brian said, his voice unexpectedly firm, "I haven't spoken to him directly, just to his receptionist." A flicker of annoyance crossed Alicia's face. "That's because he's very busy, but he's sent all the documentation." Martha maintained eye contact with her son. "Brian, before we go to this evaluation, I'd like to show you something important. Something that affects our family deeply. Mom, we've discussed this. Your paranoid accusations, not accusations, evidence." Martha turned to Alicia. "Unless you'd prefer to tell him yourself about Daniel Parker." The color drained from Alicia's face. Her hand tightened around her coffee cup. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about." Martha held Alicia's gaze steadily. "The question is whether Brian deserves to hear it from his wife or his mother." The tension in the room was unbearable. Brian looked between them, confusion giving way to suspicion. "What's going on? Who is Daniel Parker?" The doorbell rang, breaking the moment. Alicia nearly jumped from her seat. "That must be our ride to Dr. Phillips' office." Her voice was unnaturally high. "We should go." Brian didn't move. "Not until someone tells me who Daniel Parker is." The doorbell rang again, more insistently. Mrs. Graves moved to answer it, but Alicia stopped her. "I'll get it." She hurried from the room, clearly relieved to escape the confrontation. Martha leaned toward her son. "Brian, I need you to trust me one more time. There are things happening that you don't understand yet. If you ever loved and respected your father, please just wait before you let them declare me incompetent." Uncertainty flickered across Brian's face. "Mom, I don't—" He was interrupted by voices from the entryway. Alicia's raised in protest, and another firmer voice Martha recognized with profound relief. James Turner. "I'm afraid I must insist," James was saying as he entered the dining room, followed by a flustered Alicia and Diana Lopez. "As Mrs. Johnson's attorney of record, I have a legal right to accompany her to any competency evaluation." "Attorney of record?" Brian stood bewildered. "What's going on here?" Diana stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Diana Lopez, a licensed investigator working with Mr. Turner. We've been documenting a systematic campaign of elder abuse against your mother." Alicia's composure fractured. "This is ridiculous. They're interfering with a medical assessment. Brian, tell them to leave." Walter Reed entered the room, completing the unexpected rescue party. His authoritative presence filled the space as he addressed Brian directly. "Mr. Johnson, yesterday your mother filed for emergency protection against elder abuse. We have documentation of medication tampering, fabricated medical records, and financial exploitation." Brian sank back into his chair, overwhelmed. "I don't understand." "It's quite simple," Walter continued, laying a folder on the table. "Your wife has been systematically working to have your mother declared incompetent in order to access her assets. We have proof." Alicia's face contorted with rage. "They're lying. She's manipulating all of you with her paranoid delusions." She turned to Brian, grabbing his arm. "You've seen how she's been. The confusion, the accusations. Don't let them twist things." Brian looked lost, caught between competing truths. Martha's heart ached for him. "Perhaps this will help clarify things," Diana said, producing her tablet. She pulled up video footage from one of the hidden cameras they had installed. The screen clearly showed Alicia removing items from Martha's purse, hiding them, then later accusing Martha of misplacing them. Brian watched in stunned silence as the footage continued, showing Alicia crushing pills into Martha's food when no one was looking. What is this?" he finally managed. "Evidence of deliberate gaslighting and medication tampering," Diana explained clinically. "Your wife has been creating the appearance of cognitive decline while actually causing it through unauthorized medication." Alicia backed away from the table. "These videos are doctored. They've manipulated everything to turn you against me." Her voice rose hysterically. "Can't you see what they're doing?" "There's more," Walter said quietly, pushing another folder toward Brian. "Financial records showing unusual withdrawals from your accounts. Communication between your wife and a real estate agent named Daniel Parker regarding the sale of this house, a sale that would only be possible once your mother was removed from the picture." Brian opened the folder with trembling hands. As he read, his face went ashen. "And there's this," Diana added, displaying the photograph Marcus had taken of Alicia with Daniel Parker. Brian stared at the image recognition and betrayal dawning in his eyes. "This was taken here at our house." Martha nodded gently. "Marcus took it accidentally. He was confused and scared." Brian turned to Alicia, who had backed herself against the wall. "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you haven't been lying to me, manipulating me, betraying us." "You don't understand," Alicia hissed, her mask of concern completely gone now. "Your precious mother has millions while we struggle with mortgage payments and tuition. Your father left everything to her and scraps to us. I was trying to secure our future, our children's future, by drugging my mother, by having her declared incompetent." Brian's voice rose in disbelief. "By cheating on me." "Daniel understands ambition," Alicia spat. "He understands doing what's necessary. You've always been weak, Brian, just like your father." The cruel words hung in the air, revealing the true nature of a woman who had spent years cultivating a very different image. Brian seemed to physically recoil from them. Martha felt no triumph in this moment, only sadness for her son and grandchildren. The family fracturing before her eyes was still her family, broken as it was. James cleared his throat. "Mrs. Johnson has filed for a restraining order against you, Mrs. Johnson. Given the evidence of elder abuse and the statements you've just made, I believe the court will grant it immediately." "You can't do this," Alicia seethed. "This is my house, too." "Actually," Walter interjected, "it isn't. The deed is solely in Martha's name, as specified in your late husband's will. Harold was quite clear about his intentions." The sound of small footsteps on the stairs silenced everyone. Chloe appeared in the doorway, Marcus close behind her. They had clearly heard at least part of the confrontation. "Mom," Chloe's voice was small. "What's happening?" Alicia's expression shifted instantly, maternal concern replacing rage. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a misunderstanding with Grandma." "Is that why you were kissing that man in the garden?" Marcus asked his innocent question, landing like a physical blow. "Is that a misunderstanding too?" Brian made a strangled sound. Alicia's face twisted in fury as she lunged toward Marcus. "You promised not to tell! You promised!" Diana stepped between Alicia and the children. "Mrs. Johnson, I suggest you step back immediately." Martha moved to her grandchildren, gathering them close. "It's all right," she murmured. "Everything's going to be all right." Brian stood, seeming to find resolve in the threat to his children. "I think you should leave Alicia. Now. You're choosing her over me after everything I've done for this family." Alicia's voice rose to a shriek. "I'm choosing truth," Brian said quietly, "and my children's well-being." Walter nodded to Diana, who moved toward Alicia. "Mrs. Johnson, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The police are already on their way regarding the medication tampering charges, which are quite serious. If you leave quietly now, it will look better for you later." The fight seemed to drain from Alicia all at once. She glanced around the room, calculating her options and finding none. "Fine," she said finally, "but this isn't over, not by a long shot." She stormed upstairs, presumably to gather some belongings. Diana followed to ensure she didn't destroy evidence or take anything that wasn't hers. In the sudden quiet, Brian collapsed back into his chair, head in his hands. Martha gently directed Chloe and Marcus back upstairs, asking them to pack a few things for a short trip to their aunt's house. When she returned to the dining room, Brian looked up at her eyes red-rimmed. "Mom, I don't even know how to begin to apologize. I should have seen through her. I should have protected you." Martha sat beside him, taking his hand. "Manipulators are skilled at what they do, Brian. She fooled all of us for years." "Not Dad," he said quietly. "He saw something, didn't he? That's why he changed his will." Martha nodded. "Your father was very perceptive. He noticed small inconsistencies in her stories, changes in your behavior. He wanted to protect our family legacy." Brian squeezed her hand. "What happens now?" "First, we make sure the children are safe and supported. Then we deal with the legal aftermath. It won't be easy, Brian, but we'll face it together." Outside, sirens approached the police arriving to deal with the medication tampering charges. Martha knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be court hearings, painful revelations, the dismantling of years of deception. But for the first time in months, she felt the weight of fear lifting from her shoulders. The truth so long suppressed was finally emerging into the light. And in that light, Martha Johnson would reclaim not just her assets but her dignity, her voice, and her rightful place in her family. The morning light filtered through the living room curtains, casting long golden rectangles across the polished hardwood floor. Martha Johnson sat perfectly still in Harold's favorite armchair, her hands folded in her lap, waiting. The house was unusually quiet. Alicia had taken the children to school with uncharacteristic eagerness after Martha suggested she would handle the morning routine. The temporary absence of Alicia's controlling presence allowed the home to breathe again, as if the very walls welcomed the respite. The antique grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9:30. Martha checked her appearance one final time in the small mirror on the side table. The purple suit Harold had always loved still fit her well, a reminder of the dignified educator she had been before grief and manipulation had attempted to diminish her. The pearl necklace caught the light as she adjusted it, each pearl representing a year of her marriage selected by Harold with typical thoughtfulness. At precisely 9:45, James Turner arrived carrying a leather briefcase that contained the documentation of their case. Martha welcomed him with a warm embrace, drawing strength from the presence of her late husband's oldest friend. "Are you certain about this approach?" James asked quietly as they settled in the living room. "Walter and Diana are ready with the legal countermeasures if you prefer that route." Martha nodded, her resolve unwavering. "My son deserves one chance to see the truth outside a courtroom. I believe there's still good in him, James. He's lost, not gone." At 10:03, the doorbell rang again. Diana Lopez entered, her professional demeanor softened by genuine concern for Martha. "Walter is on standby," she confirmed, setting up a small recording device on the coffee table. If this doesn't go as hoped, we proceed directly to Plan B. Martha took a deep breath, centering herself. It will work. It has to. The sound of a key in the front door announced Brian's arrival. He entered cautiously, his expression a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Seeing James and Diana, his stance immediately became defensive. "What is this, Mom? Some kind of intervention?" Martha gestured to the empty seat across from her. "It's a chance for truth, Brian. Please sit down." Brian hesitated, then reluctantly took the offered seat. "Alicia doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at a client meeting." "That's probably for the best," Martha replied gently. "What we need to discuss should be between us first." James cleared his throat. "Brian, we've known each other for many years. I was your father's closest friend. I'm here today because Harold would want me to protect his family, all of his family." Brian shifted uncomfortably. "From what my own mother thinks I'm trying to harm her. That's exactly the kind of paranoid thinking Dr. Phillips warned us about." Diana placed a folder on the coffee table. "Actually, what we're about to show you suggests a very different diagnosis. Not for your mother, but for the situation your family is in." Martha leaned forward, looking directly into her son's eyes. "Brian, tomorrow, you're scheduled to appear at a guardianship hearing where you'll ask the court to declare me incompetent and grant you control of my person and property. Is that correct?" Brian's gaze dropped to his hands. "It's for your own protection, Mom. You're not well." "What evidence do you have of that?" Martha asked, her voice calm but firm. "Alicia has documented everything. The confusion, the paranoia, the memory lapses. Dr. Phillips confirmed it." Martha nodded slowly. "I see. And have you personally witnessed these episodes? Not what Alicia reported, but what you've seen with your own eyes?" Brian hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face. "You seem fine when I'm around, but Alicia says that's common with your condition. The episodes happen when I'm not there." Martha exchanged glances with James, who nodded encouragingly. It was time for the first revelation. "Brian, I'd like you to watch something." Martha nodded to Diana, who opened her laptop and turned it to face Brian. The screen displayed footage from one of the hidden cameras they had installed. In the video, Alicia was clearly seen opening Martha's purse, removing items, and hiding them behind books on a shelf. Later footage showed Alicia confronting Martha about the missing items, accusing her of forgetting where she had placed them. Brian's face paled as he watched multiple instances of Alicia manufacturing evidence of Martha's supposed decline. "This could be taken out of context," he protested weakly. Diana queued up another video. "This was recorded 3 days ago in your kitchen." The footage showed Alicia crushing pills into Martha's evening tea when no one was watching. The camera angle clearly captured the prescription bottle, the same medication Brian had confronted Martha about forgetting to take. Brian's hands began to tremble. "I don't understand. Why would she do this?" Martha felt a profound sadness, watching her son's world begin to crumble. "Because of what your father left behind, Brian. The house, the investments, the beach property in Charleston, approximately $19 million in total assets." "What?" Brian's shock appeared genuine. "Dad never mentioned anything like that." James nodded. Harold was very private about financial matters, but he was also very specific about his wishes. He removed a copy of Harold's will from his briefcase, sliding it across the table. "He left everything in Martha's name, with provisions for you and the children that activate at specific times." Brian scanned the document, his confusion deepening. "But Alicia said the will was straightforward, that most assets would transfer to me as the only child." "That's what she wanted you to believe," Martha said softly. "Now I need you to see who Alicia really is." Diana placed another folder on the table. Angela Blackwood, also known as Alicia Bennett, now Alicia Johnson. She has a history of targeting vulnerable families, particularly widowers or families experiencing loss. The folder contained newspaper clippings, court records, and photographs documenting Alicia's previous identities and activities. Most damning was a court case from California where she had been charged, though not convicted, of elder financial abuse. Brian's face had gone ashen. This can't be right. Alicia loves me. We have a family together. Martha reached across the table, taking her son's trembling hand. I believe she does care for you in her way, Brian, but there's more you need to see. The next document was a draft divorce filing discovered in Alicia's email communications with her attorney. It detailed plans to seek primary custody of the children and substantial financial support once the estate matters were resolved. Brian stared at the papers, visibly struggling to process what he was seeing. When was this drafted? 6 weeks ago, Diana answered quietly. Shortly after your father passed away. The grandfather clock chimed 10:30, its deep resonance filling the painful silence that had descended upon the room. Brian stood abruptly pacing the living room, his world visibly collapsing around him. There's one more thing you should know, Martha said gently, about Daniel Parker. Brian stopped turning to face his mother, who... Diana produced the photograph Marcus had accidentally taken showing Alicia and Daniel embracing in the side yard. Daniel Parker is a real estate agent with significant gambling debts. He and Alicia have been meeting regularly for months. Our investigation suggests they've been planning to sell this house once you obtained guardianship of your mother. Brian took the photograph with shaking hands, studying it intently, as if searching for any possible explanation besides the obvious truth. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. The children. Do they know? They've seen and heard things, Martha admitted. Chloe and Marcus are perceptive. They've been caught in the middle of this, Brian used as pawns and threatened to maintain silence. Something changed in Brian's expression, then grief giving way to a slow-burning anger. I need to hear it from her. I need to confront her with all of this. Martha exchanged concerned glances with James and Diana. We need to be strategic about this, Brian. The guardianship hearing is tomorrow. If Alicia realizes we're onto her, there's no telling what she might do. I don't care, Brian said, his voice hardening. I want the truth, from her lips. Before anyone could respond, the front door opened. Martha felt a chill run down her spine as Alicia's voice called from the entryway. Brian, your car's outside. Aren't you supposed to be at your meeting? Footsteps approached the living room. Alicia appeared in the doorway, freezing at the sight of the gathering. Her eyes darted from face to face, quickly assessing the situation. With remarkable composure, she shifted into a concerned expression. What's going on here? Is everything okay? Her gaze fixed on James and Diana. Who are these people? Brian stood perfectly still, the photograph still clutched in his hand. We need to talk, Alicia. Martha watched her daughter-in-law, carefully noting the barely perceptible shift in her posture as she recognized the threat. Alicia's eyes narrowed briefly before she manufactured a look of confusion. Of course, honey. What about... She moved to Brian's side, placing a proprietary hand on his arm. When he flinched away from her touch, her facade cracked momentarily. Why don't you sit down? Martha suggested, her voice steady. We have quite a lot to discuss before tomorrow's court hearing. Alicia's head snapped toward Martha, genuine surprise in her expression. You know about that. I know everything, Martha said simply. About the medications you've been giving me without my knowledge. About the false documents you've created. About Dr. Phillips and his questionable practice of declaring people incompetent for financial gain. Alicia recovered quickly, turning to Brian with wide, innocent eyes. You see, this is exactly what Dr. Phillips warned us about. Paranoid delusions, conspiracy theories. She needs help, Brian. Brian held up the photograph. Is this a paranoid delusion too? You and Daniel Parker? For the first time, Alicia appeared genuinely rattled. She snatched the photograph, staring at it in disbelief. Where did you get this? Marcus took it, Brian said coldly. My 8-year-old son captured what I was too blind to see. Alicia's demeanor transformed instantly, the concerned wife disappearing, replaced by cold calculation. You don't understand anything, Brian. Do you have any idea what it's like being married to you? Always living in the shadow of your precious mother, never making enough money, never being enough. So you decided to drug her and have her declared incompetent. Brian's voice rose in anger. You manipulated me, used our children all for money. Alicia laughed bitterly. Don't act so innocent. You were happy enough to believe what I told you about her condition. It was convenient for you too, wasn't it? A nice, clean solution to the burden of caring for an aging parent. Martha felt each word like a physical blow, but maintained her dignified silence, allowing the truth to unfold naturally. Diana spoke up, her professional demeanor unwavering. Ms. Johnson, or should I say Ms. Blackwood, we have documented evidence of your systematic campaign against Martha: medication tampering, falsified medical records, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The authorities are very interested in speaking with you and Dr. Phillips. Alicia's expression hardened. You have nothing that would stand up in court. James leaned forward, his judicial authority evident in his bearing. Actually, we have everything, including testimony from your previous victims in California. The color drained from Alicia's face. For a moment, the room was utterly silent, the weight of exposed truths hanging in the air. Then Alicia straightened her shoulders, switching tactics with alarming agility. Brian, she said, her voice softening, I did it for us, for our future. Your father left everything to her. We would have received nothing for years. You know how we've struggled financially. I was trying to secure our children's future. Brian stared at her in disbelief. By destroying my mother, by lying to me every single day. I never lied about loving you, Alicia insisted, reaching for him again. Brian backed away. Was our entire marriage a lie? Did you ever love me, or was I just a convenient target? Something genuine flashed across Alicia's face. Pain, perhaps, or regret. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When we met, I just saw opportunity. But the children, I do love them, Brian. Whatever else you believe, know that. Martha finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. What happens now is your choice, Alicia. The guardianship hearing tomorrow will not proceed as you planned. Instead, we'll be presenting evidence of elder abuse and fraud. Or you can leave now. Walk away from this house and this family. Alicia's eyes narrowed dangerously. You think it's that simple? Those are my children too. I'm not leaving without them. Actually, Diana interjected, producing another document, given the evidence of your attempting to involve the children in your scheme, including psychological manipulation, and using them to monitor Martha, we have grounds for an emergency custody order pending full investigation. The realization that she was truly cornered seemed to hit Alicia all at once. Her composure crumbled, replaced by naked fury. None of you understand what I've been through, where I came from, the poverty, the abuse. I clawed my way out of nothing. Everything I did was for survival. Martha rose from her chair, crossing the room to stand before her daughter-in-law. Despite the difference in their ages in this moment, Martha seemed the taller, stronger presence. I understand more than you think, Alicia. I grew up poor too. I know what it means to fear returning to nothing. But what you've done isn't survival. It's destruction. Tears of rage filled Alicia's eyes. You don't get to judge me. You had Harold. You had support. I had no one. You had us, Brian said quietly. You had a family who loved you, and you betrayed all of us. The doorbell rang, slicing through the tension. Diana moved to answer it, returning moments later with a police officer and a woman in a business suit. Ms. Bennett Johnson, the officer asked. I'm Officer Ramirez. This is Ms. Thompson from Child Protective Services. We need to ask you some questions regarding allegations of elder abuse and child endangerment. Alicia's face contorted with rage. You called the authorities after everything I've done for this family. You did this to yourself, Brian said, his voice breaking, when you decided that money was worth more than truth, worth more than us. As Alicia was escorted from the room for questioning, an unnatural quiet descended. Brian collapsed onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Martha sat beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. I should have seen it. I should have known. She was very convincing, Martha said gently, and you wanted to believe in your marriage and your family. There's no shame in that. Brian looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. What happens now to the children, to us? Martha squeezed his hand. Now we begin to heal. Together. The days following Alicia's exposure passed in a blur of legal proceedings and emotional reckonings. The guardianship hearing was canceled after Brian withdrew the petition and filed a counterstatement documenting the manipulation he had experienced. Dr. Phillips faced medical board inquiries and potential criminal charges for his role in multiple fraudulent competency cases. Most painfully, Daniel Parker was arrested attempting to flee the state, carrying documents that implicated both him and Alicia in a broader scheme targeting wealthy elderly individuals. His testimony, offered in exchange for leniency, revealed the full extent of Alicia's deception, stretching back years before she had even met Brian. Throughout it all, Martha focused on the children. Chloe and Marcus were devastated by their mother's absence and the confusing explanations of why she had left. Martha spent hours sitting with them, answering questions honestly, but gently affirming that none of what had happened was their fault. "Did Mom ever love us?" Marcus asked one evening as Martha tucked him into bed. Martha chose her words carefully. "I believe she loves you in the way she knows how, Marcus. Some people learn broken ways of showing love. That doesn't mean you have to stop loving her. It just means understanding that she made bad choices." Chloe, more perceptive at 12, had different questions. Was everything about Mom a lie? Even her name? "Not everything," Martha assured her. "The moments when she read to you, played with you, cared for you when you were sick, those were real. People are complicated, sweetheart. They can do terrible things and still have goodness in them." 1 month after the confrontation, life had settled into a new rhythm. Brian had begun therapy to process the betrayal and his role in enabling Alicia's behavior. The children were adjusting gradually, with the stability Martha provided serving as their anchor during turbulent times. On a crisp autumn morning, Martha sat on the back porch watching golden leaves drift from the maple tree Harold had planted when they first moved in. Brian joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "How are you feeling, Mom, truly?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. Martha accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. "I'm at peace, Brian. Not happy exactly, too much has been lost for simple happiness, but at peace with where we are and the truth we now live in." Brian nodded, gazing out at the yard where his children were gathering colorful leaves. "I spoke with Walter yesterday about the house." "Oh," Martha raised an eyebrow. "You should move back into the master bedroom," Brian said firmly. "This is your home. Dad wanted you to have it." Martha considered this, watching the children's carefree play. "Actually, I've been thinking about something different." She explained her idea, moving to the beach house in Charleston, giving Brian and the children space to heal in the family home without daily reminders of the painful past. She would visit regularly, remain an active presence in their lives, but also begin building something new for herself. "But this is your home," Brian protested. "Everything you and Dad built together is here." Martha shook her head gently. "Not everything. Our memories, our love, those travel with me. And the beach house was Harold's special gift to me. He always said it would be where I found peace in my later years." Brian looked troubled. "It feels like I'm driving you away." "Not at all," Martha assured him. "It's about choosing my path forward, not running from the past. The children need stability now, not more change. They should stay in their schools near their friends, and you need space to rebuild your life without feeling your mother is watching over your shoulder." After further discussion, they reached an understanding. Martha would move to Charleston, but return to Boston for extended visits. The family home would remain in her name, but Brian would live there with the children. Most importantly, they would be honest with each other, breaking the cycle of secrets that had nearly destroyed them. 2 weeks later, Martha stood in the master bedroom, packing the last of her personal items. The house felt lighter somehow, as if the truth had cleared away a heaviness that had long pervaded the space. Chloe appeared in the doorway, watching her grandmother fold Harold's favorite sweater. "I wish you weren't going, Grandma," she said quietly. Martha beckoned her closer. "Come here, sweetheart." As Chloe settled beside her on the bed, Martha pulled a small package from her drawer. "I have something for you." Unwrapping the tissue paper, Chloe found a beautiful leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. "This is your truth journal," Martha explained. Not for secrets or things you're afraid to say aloud, but for your story, the story of who you are and who you're becoming. I'll have one too, and when we're together, we can share what we've written if we choose to." Tears filled Chloe's eyes as she clutched the journal to her chest. "Will you write to me when you're in Charleston?" "Every week," Martha promised, "and we'll video call twice a week, plus you and Marcus will visit for school breaks. Charleston has beautiful beaches." And later that day, and the family gathered for a farewell dinner, Martha felt Harold's presence more strongly than she had since his passing. She could almost hear his deep laugh, see his approving smile. He had prepared for this possibility, creating safety nets she hadn't known she would need. His final gift had been protection wrapped in trust. The following morning, Brian and the children accompanied Martha to the airport. The goodbyes were emotional, but not final, a beginning rather than an ending. "I love you, Mom," Brian said, embracing her tightly. "Thank you for not giving up on me even when I failed you." Martha cupped his face in her hands the way she had when he was a small boy. "A mother's love doesn't recognize failure, Brian. It only sees the journey." 3 months later, Martha stood on the wide porch of the Charleston beach house, watching waves crash against the shore in rhythmic percussion. The December air carried a hint of salt and the promise of rain, but was far milder than the Boston winter she had left behind. The house itself was a beautiful Victorian overlooking the Atlantic, with wraparound porches and large windows that filled every room with light. Harold had purchased it secretly 15 years earlier, renovating it slowly as an anniversary surprise. Martha had visited only twice before, never imagining it would become her sanctuary. Inside, she had created spaces that reflected both her past and her future. Harold's photographs adorned the walls alongside new artwork she had discovered in local galleries. His books filled shelves next to volumes she had always wanted to read but never found time for. It was a home of memory and possibility, of honoring what had been while embracing what could be. Martha's days had found a new rhythm. Mornings began with coffee on the eastern porch, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in spectacular colors. She had joined a local book club, volunteered at a literacy program for underprivileged children, and made several friends who, like her, were navigating life's later chapters with grace and purpose. Most fulfilling was her work with a support group for elderly victims of financial exploitation. Martha's story, shared carefully and with permission from all involved, had become a powerful teaching tool. Her quiet strength gave others courage to speak their truths, to reclaim their dignity from those who had attempted to diminish them. Brian and the children had visited for Thanksgiving, filling the beach house with laughter and new memories. The healing was ongoing but undeniable. Brian had started dating again cautiously. The children were thriving in school, their resilience a testament to the stable foundation Martha and Brian had rebuilt. As for Alicia, justice had taken its course. Facing multiple charges of fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy, she had accepted a plea agreement that included prison time and restitution. Martha had chosen not to attend the sentencing, sending James as her representative instead. Some chapters were better closed from a distance. On this particular evening, Martha sat at her desk, writing in her journal, a practice that had evolved from documentation of abuse to celebration of life. The pages no longer chronicled manipulation and fear, but small joys, reflections, and wisdom gained through adversity. The doorbell chimed, interrupting her writing. Martha wasn't expecting visitors. She made her way downstairs, curious. Opening the front door revealed a delivery person holding a large package. "Martha Johnson," the young woman confirmed. "Special delivery. Needs a signature." Inside, Martha unwrapped the package with care. Beneath layers of protective material lay a beautiful wooden box, handcrafted with intricate detail. A note was attached in familiar handwriting. "For Martha, to be delivered on the first anniversary of my passing. For new beginnings. With eternal love." Harold, tears filled Martha's eyes as she opened the box. Inside was a first edition of Maya Angelou's Still I Rise, Martha's favorite poem and personal mantra through difficult times. Beneath the book lay an envelope containing ownership papers for the beach house and a handwritten letter. Martha moved to the porch swing, Harold's favorite spot when they had visited together. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the world in hues of gold and crimson. She opened the letter with trembling fingers, feeling Harold's presence surround her like a warm embrace. My dearest Martha, if you're reading this, I've been gone a year, and you've weathered storms I hoped would never come. I've always known your strength, even when you doubted it yourself. When we met all those years ago, I saw in you a quiet dignity that the world often overlooks but can never truly diminish. I made arrangements to protect you financially, but I know you well enough to understand that your true wealth has never been in bank accounts or properties. Your richness is in your capacity for love, your unwavering integrity, and your gentle wisdom. This house is my final gift to you, not as shelter from storms, but as a place to spread your wings. I imagine you sitting where I once sat, watching the same waves, finding your own rhythm in this next chapter. I hope you're writing again, teaching again, loving again, not despite your grief, but alongside it. I never told you enough how proud I was to walk through life with you, how honored I felt each morning waking beside someone of such profound goodness. You made me better than I would have been alone. Remember what we always told each other. Love doesn't end, it transforms. Mine has become the sunrise you watch each morning, the waves that greet your walks, the stars that keep you company at night. Rise, my love, continue rising. Forever yours, Harold. Martha held the letter to her heart, tears flowing freely now. The pain of loss remained, but something else had grown alongside it, a profound gratitude for having been so deeply known and loved, and the quiet confidence that comes from surviving what once seemed unsurvivable. The beach house, once Harold's surprise, had become Martha's sanctuary and launching pad. From here, she was creating a new life, not to replace what had been lost, but to honor it through continued growth. As darkness fell, Martha remained on the porch, listening to the eternal rhythm of the waves. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the grief, the betrayal, the struggle to reclaim her voice and her dignity. She had emerged not just intact, but expanded, wiser, more compassionate, more herself than she had ever been. In the morning, she would call Brian and the children. She would continue planning their summer visit. She would attend her volunteer session at the Literacy Center and meet her new friend Elaine for lunch. Life would proceed with its beautiful ordinariness, its sacred routine. Martha opened her journal, turning to a fresh page. By the light of the porch lamp, she began to write. Today I received Harold's final gift, not the house or the book, but the reminder that love persists beyond presence. The silence that was once imposed on me has transformed into chosen contemplation. The woman who was nearly erased has become more vividly herself. I understand now what Harold always knew. Dignity cannot be granted or taken away by others. It resides within waiting to be recognized and claimed. My story continues, not despite what happened, but because of it. Each day is both an ending and a beginning. Each moment, a choice to rise. Martha closed the journal, breathing in the salt air. Above her, stars punctuated the vast darkness with ancient light. Below, waves continued their timeless conversation with the shore. She had survived. She had reclaimed. She had transcended. Now she would live fully, authentically, gloriously. Not in silence, but in the harmonious voice of a woman who had discovered her own immeasurable worth.